Breaking news. Welcome to today's headlines. I visited Ojukwus bunker, the hidden place of the Biafran warlord during the Civil War. Here is what I found. I visited Ojukwus bunker, the hidden place of the Biafran warlord during the Civil War. Here is what I found. To my dear listeners from wherever you're listening from, please stay tuned as I read today's news. Shortly after the Nigerian Civil War broke out on July 6, 1967, following the declaration of Biafra as a sovereign state by Odumegwu Chukwuemeka Ojukwu on May 30, 1967, Enugu became the capital of the newly formed nation, but it didn't take long before the new capital faced its first trial from the Nigerian troops. Nsukka, a small town about 48 kilometers from Enugu, was the first to fall. After the capturing of Nsukka, led by Lieutenant Colonel Theophilus Danjuma, its 7 battalions of the Nigerian forces spread out on different fronts and marched toward the capital Enugu. To slow down the invading enemy, Biafra soldiers began cutting down trees and digging trenches. But the more equipped federal artillery began bombarding Enugu on September 26, 1967, while the Nigerian Air Force conducted raids on the city. Despite Ojukwus' plea for people not to abandon the city, Enugu fell to the Nigerian forces on October 4, 1968, with Ojukwu narrowly escaping the troops. Surprisingly, the war was not over. With the Nigerian forces occupying Enugu, Ojukwu relocated the capital to Umuahia, a relatively unheard of town deep down into Biafra land, more than 50 kilometers from the eastern commercial center, Aba. From Umuahia, Ojukwu coordinated the Biafran troops' warfare against the invading Nigerian soldiers from 1986 until April 22, 1969, when the city fell to the Nigerian forces and the headquarters was moved to Loweri. Less than a year later, Ojukwu fled out of the country to Ivory Coast. On January 9, 1970, signaling the end of the 2.5-year war that killed more than 2 million people. 52 years after Ojukwu fled Nigeria, his base, which served as the Biafran State House in Umuahia, now called the Ojukwus bunker, has become an annex of the National War Museum, the only war museum in West Africa. Ojukwu, a rich kid and United Kingdom educated soldier who had access to political power at the early stage of his life, was just 34 when he led the southeast region out of Nigeria, where he said they felt unwanted. I have heard a lot of stories about the Ojukwu bunker. As a young boy growing up in Isiala, Ungwa North, about 51 kilometers Away from Island on May 26, 2022, I decided to visit the bunker. It had drizzled in the early afternoon before I set out around 3:15 p.m. to visit the bunker. The weather was cloudy, but it didn't look like it would rain again. At least, not soon. I trekked down from Umuahia State Library where I chose to walk on May 26, 2022. Google Maps showed that the bunker was just 1.3 kilometer from my location. That is a 10-minute walk. To locate the bunker faster without missing my way, I'd called a friend a day before my visit. He lives a trekkable distance from the bunker and had promised to lead me there. However, several calls to his cell phone before I left the library were unanswered, so I decided to rely on Google Maps. After missing my way and walking around the area for about 20 minutes, following a wrong description from a young man I had met on the street, my host finally called me to, to lead me to the bunker. Anyone visiting the bunker for the first time will be pardoned for missing the way even with the aid of Google Maps. There was no signpost, no activity around the area to suggest that a white painted one-story building was the bunker. As we headed into the premises, I discovered the home of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra IPOB, was less than 1 kilometer from the bunker. The bullet perforation from the Nigerian Army's invasion of the house in September 2017 was still visible, and the burial postal of his parents was still on the gate. I realized IPOB and Biafra are almost forbidden words in the area, as residents avoid often discussing them in public. So my dear listeners, now I've come to the end of our today's news. Please do drop by our